Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. To the Miami Hurricane fans who've been rocking with the fellas the last couple of years. Many of y'all know what time period we are heading into. It is official visit season, and you look at the talent that Miami's going to be having on campus over the next couple of weeks. It's some of the more impressive visitor lists that you'll see across the country. Now, we're going to have a lot of talent that's going to be on campus for Miami in 2026. What does the dream class look like in this cycle? Now, let's be very clear about one thing, and I'm sure many of y'all know this. This is not what the 2026 class is going to finish to be for the Miami Hurricanes. We all know that you're not going to get every target you go after. This, to me, is it kind of a fun exercise to identify who are the top targets for the Miami Hurricanes in the 2026 cycle. That's the conversation I want to get into, kind of preview where Miami is going over the next couple of weeks. This is some sicko stuff in the middle of May. I'm sure the Miami Hurricane fans got some names that y'all don't see on the screen that you would like to see added. Please let it fly in the comment section. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. I'm fired up to be breaking down some of the commitments that we're going to see over the next couple of weeks, talk about the visit weekends. Appreciate y'all rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now, general takes surrounding this class in 2026, we've already seen. Like, it's going to be offensive line heavy, and I think that's for two different reasons. Number one, I don't think Miami signed the ideal offensive line class in 2025. And it's not like you don't like the guys that they added to the roster. I just think it probably wasn't an elite offensive line class. And I think Miami wanted to sign an elite offensive line class in the 2026 cycle. They're well on their way to doing that. Obviously, headlined by Jackson Cantwell. Now, let's start at the top with the quarterback Miami has committed. I'll start with this. How refreshing is it to have your quarterback committed for really the last year? And he ain't looking anywhere else. He's so simply just recruiting for this program. That's refreshing because we don't see that from a lot of other quarterbacks. We don't see that from a lot of other players in this day and age of the sport. Darian Coleman's been dialed in, has been locked in to the Miami Hurricanes for a very long time. This kid excites me, and I've been very, very vocal that I think Darian Coleman, if he figures out how to make it work with his frame, he's going to be a stud for the Miami Hurricanes. Now, the one knock on this kid is he is a smaller quarterback with a slender frame. The arm talent is there. I mean, he has a really quick release. He's a twitchy kid moving in the pocket, knows how to extend plays, can make any throw you want on the football field. It's one of the more live and talented arms that you see in 2026. Look, to put it quite frankly, if you was 6'3", 6'4", you'd be talking about a top 100, probably top 50 national prospect because he's a little bit shorter, doesn't have as much of the recruiting buzz around him. I'm pretty sure Miami loves what they have at the quarterback position with Darian Coleman. Running back spot, you already have Javian Mallory committed. That was one of the top targets, I think, by far, and he's been the top target for Miami for a while. That's Derek Cooper. Outside of Savion Hitter from Virginia, he's probably my favorite running back in the 2026 cycle. There was some conversation of what position he was going to play at the collegiate ranks. His junior year made it very, very clear that this kid's a running back and he's going to be a difference maker at running back pretty much wherever he goes. And all the heavy hitters are involved, right? Ohio State, Georgia, obviously Miami. I think Miami's probably the leader in the clubhouse. This one's going to be a heavy hitter, big boy recruitment. And we just saw Mario Cristobal go out and win one. I think the proximity is probably going to help. But I also think what helps here is that look at what Miami's done on the offensive line. Look at what they're doing on the offensive line in this 2026 cycle. You want to sell Derek Cooper to the Miami Hurricanes. I think you're going to have a really good run game in 2025, but it looks like you're going to have a damn good run game for the next couple of years. And you're saying, hey, Derek Cooper, you're going to be the guy that's getting a lot of work over the next couple of years in this offense. Wide receiver board. This was probably the most fun for me to put together. Let's start with Calvin Russell, in-state kid. I'm going to say this, and I don't want anybody to overreact. Kind of reminds me of Hakeem Williams a little bit in terms of the size, the speed, the athleticism. This kid is about as freaky of an athlete as you see coming out of high school. Now, the reason I kind of give the Hakeem Williams comp is pretty raw still, like kind of just a one-dimensional vertical kind of guy, kind of like we talked about with Hakeem Williams too. Now the difference here is Hakeem Williams goes to Florida State, deals with some injuries, deals with really bad quarterback play. That just turned out to be not a great spot to develop and get the best out of Hakeem Williams. Calvin Russell, it's like I make the Hakeem Williams comp saying, hey, he goes to a different program, has a different situation, and things work out. This kid could be an all conference, all American caliber wide receiver. Like at the end of the day, God don't make many guys that look like Calvin Russell. If you're Miami, you're betting on those traits every single day of the week. Messiah Hampton, 10-minute drive from my house up here in Rochester, New York. This kid's just a playmaker. I mean, you look at Messiah Hampton, he's not the biggest, he's not the fastest, he's elite at the catch point. Very good with the football in his hands. I'm fired up to see this kid play in person. I'll be straight up with you guys. You knew who he was up here in Rochester, New York when he was a junior, but there wasn't a ton of buzz around his name with a three-star prospect 12 months ago. This kid during this offseason has like taken over and he's just skyrocketed in the recruiting rankings. I'll certainly get out there and catch a game on it for him Friday night. I really like Messiah Hampton. It sounds like Miami is certainly in the leader of the pack for a kid like Messiah Hampton. Vance Badford from California, extremely productive wide receiver with really good straight line speed, committed to Georgia, very clear that he is opened and he's going to be taking a visit to Miami. It's another kid that I think Miami's got a decent shot at. And Jason Lopez, a guy that we've talked about a lot over the last couple of months. This is, obviously down there in Hollywood, Florida, he is, to me, Xavier Restrepo 2.0. Elite basketball player, too. Kind of flew under the radar for most of his recruitment because he's a little bit shorter, doesn't have these crazy track and field metrics. Go turn on the tape for this kid. A very similar conversation with Xavier Restrepo. Like, why was Xavier Restrepo not drafted in the NFL? He's shorter and a little bit slower. Didn't change the fact that he was one of the better wide receivers that we saw in the country. Very similar vibes for a guy like Jason Lopez, too. I think he's going to be dynamite as a slot wide receiver wherever he goes to college. I think this should be a top priority for Miami, and I think they are making him one going into the summer. Tight end position, your big name here is Mark Bowman. This is a guy that I'll say this. When Miami wants guys, they'll push their chips in to go get. Wouldn't hate if that was the other guy that Miami decided to really go after and get. Now, this is, you're going up against Texas, you're going up against USC, Oregon, Georgia, heavy hitters involved. One of the more impressive tight ends that I've seen come out of high school in a very long time. Now, what Miami gets to sell here is, like, you come to Miami, we're going to use the tight ends and we're going to put you out to the NFL draft. Obviously, what happened with Elijah Arroyo, I think the same thing's going to happen with Elijah Lofton. Israel Briggs is the other one. If Mark Bowman goes somewhere else, which, let's be honest, right now, I don't think Miami's the leader in the clubhouse for Mark Bowman. Israel Briggs, he's 6'4", 200 pounds from the West Coast, plays safety, plays wide receiver, plays a little corner. He's a three-sport athlete. He loved the athletic profile. He's a guy that probably needs some development, but could be a really dynamic pass-catching threat at the tight end position. I think what makes sense for Miami here is you have some time to develop them. I think Miami loves what they have at the tight end position in the 2025 cycle. They obviously loved what they have with Elijah Lofton, who's going to be a sophomore. You land the commitment of Israel Briggs. You don't have to force him on the field for the first 2 years. You can get him in the weight room, get his body up to around 240 pounds. When this kid gets his body right and maintains the athleticism that he has, I think he could be a very, very dynamic pass catching threat wherever he goes. You're probably just not going to use him the first 2 years. Offensive line, obviously, it's a great start. Jackson Cantwell, that doesn't get much better than that. I know Miami loves Ben Cogden. I know Miami loves Joel Irvin. JJ Sparks is a guy that's just I know he's not a blue chip prospect. He's only a 3-star, but to me, it's just it doesn't really get much more solid than him on the offensive line. Like, I'd be surprised if he wasn't, going into his senior year, starting for Miami at some point on the offensive line. Brett Koleje is about as safe as it gets. Like, another guy that he's just going to start. He's probably not going to be a top 50, top 25 NFL draft pick. Probably going to be a very reliable starter for the Miami Hurricanes during his time there. Cannon Pickett, you probably say the very similar thing. You bet on some upside. Ben Cogden, Joel Irvin, those guys to me are kind of lottery tickets where, hey, they might not work out, but they also might be some of the better offensive linemen that we see in the country, but need some development. Why don't you go supplement that with a guy like Breck or a guy like Cannon Pickett, who we just know are going to be solid starting caliber offensive linemen. Going over to the defensive side of the football, let's start this with Lamar Brown. Now, again, Miami has some ground to make up here. LSU by far the leader in the clubhouse. You probably put Texas A&M 2 and Miami 3. I said this about Mark Bowman. We obviously said this about Jackson Cantwell. I think the same thing applies for Lamar Brown. And Lamar Brown, look, when Mario Cristobal and the Miami Hurricanes want to get aggressive for a kid at the high school ranks, what position are they normally at? They're normally at the offensive line spot, guy like Jackson Cantwell or a guy like Francis Maui Noah, or they're at the defensive line spot, guys like Justin Scott. Lamar Brown, to me, is one of those guys that if you're trying to find a guy that you want to kind of unload the clip, push your chips in, and go out and get, he might be it for two different reasons. One, the football player is awesome. The second part is, look, the defensive line class, it kind of stinks this year. And I mean that respectfully. It's not, I mean, what we saw in 2025 was an elite class. 2026 is nowhere close in terms of these kind of bodies. So when you have the opportunity to go out and get an elite one, you might want to try to go make that happen. Lamar Brown, to me, that guy. Now, there's still some discussion on what position he's going to play. Could play on the offensive line. I think would be a dynamite 3-tech. To me, the conversation with Lamar Brown is, yeah, you could stick him at guard, and he'd be an all-conference guard for multiple years at college. I feel pretty confident about that. My only issue is I feel like he's too good to stick him at guard. With a player and athlete of that caliber, I want him playing a position where he can impact the game in a big way. And to me, that's playing 3-tech on the defensive line. James Johnson, in-state kid, again, you just don't see that many kind of bodies in this 2026 cycle, especially in state. Go make sure you try to get that one done. Freddie Wilson winding out the class. The interior defensive line class is just not all that strong in the 2026 cycle. Can you go get two of the top kids? You feel pretty good about it. Edge rusher room, I'm projecting here. Anthony Jones, state champ shot putter, really good first step. This is a guy that can win with burst and bend. He can win with speed to power. And then you got Ashari Charles and Bryce Perry Wright. I love Bryce Perry Wright, low key, like Ruben Bain 2.0, in my opinion, coming from Buford, Georgia. Like if I'm Mario Cristobal, if I'm Jason Taylor, I'm selling Bryce Perry Wright on, hey, you got the exact same athletic profile as Ruben Bain, maybe just a little bit more length. You'd be good fit here with the Miami Hurricanes. Off-ball backer, hold on to Jordan Campbell. I think he's one of the best off-ball linebackers in the class. I think they will. Malik Morris, that's kind of a Miami-Florida battle. Really like him. And then J.J. Bush, a little bit of an under-the-radar kid because he's undersized, flies around the football field, makes a lot of plays, kind of, and I believe he's from Alabama, kind of reminds you a little bit of Bobby Pruitt coming out of the state of Alabama a couple of years ago. Cornerback class, you got year three, in my opinion, cornerbacks locked in. Camden Portis, Jalen Waters, Jontavius Wyman, excuse me. Jontavius Wyman could play safety. In fact, I think I might like him more at safety, but that's a solid cornerback class. And then safety, Blake Stewart, Cortez Redding, two Georgia kids that I think Miami's got a very good shot at landing. It's shaping up to be, I mean, you got your class crown jewel, if you know what I mean, with Jackson Cantwell. You got to fill in the pieces around him. Again, it's going to get real over the next couple of weeks. This list will probably change. I think the whole purpose of this was, hey, let's get a feel for some of the top players that Miami's going to take a swing on over the next couple of weeks. And as these guys commit, whether it's to Miami, whether it's elsewhere, we'll kind of adjust the board and come back to this. Right now, sitting here in early May, this is my dream class, and I tried to balance it with some reality as well. Let it fly in the comment section. I'm sure that because y'all some sickos, see y'all got some names for me in the comment section. Please let it fly. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.